pray with me. Loving and gracious God, we thank you so much for the way you love us. It's overwhelming to think that you have made us, that you put us together, and that you may help us to move. It's incomprehensible that this thing called love could exist, that people could overcome their pettiness, their smallness, and truly love one another. Lead us and guide us that we may grow into this love, that we may truly love one another. Lead us and guide us. Amen. I had the privilege last night of driving some youth home after a concert. Some of you know what that's like. Sometimes they listen to their iPods, and other times they talk to each other. Not usually to the adult, but they talk to each other. And the two people in my back seat were pretending they were married. And they were saying things to each other like, I fed the dog last time. Well, I paid for the dog food. Well, why haven't you paid the bills? Well, I can't believe you didn't do X. Well, you're sleeping in the driveway tonight. And the way they were saying it was quite humorous, and I thought it was very funny until the cold light of day. And in the cold light of day, the fact that we might think of marriage as arguments was troubling to me. And in the cold light of day, it reminded me of my parents' marriage. My parents very much love one another, but their marriage is what you would call domestic violence. Their marriage is domestic terror. As a child, it was difficult. And maybe some of you have experienced that difficulty yourself. When I was in 3rd grade, I had this teacher, Mrs. Spielman, and she had the blonde flip hairdo and the bright red lipstick. And she was the most wonderful person, and she read to us Laura Ingalls Wilder, Little House in the Woods. Have you ever read that book? And it hooked me. And I read the whole series. And as I grew older, I began to think, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to write books for children so that when they go through what I went through as a child, they'll know that they're not alone. They'll know that there is light at the end of the tunnel, that you get to choose how you live, that you get to choose if you're married, how you'll relate to one another, and that it won't always be this way. So throughout my 20s, I would sit down and try and write this book, and I could never get past the first page. First of all, because it was painful memories to face. And second of all, because I didn't know what I would do, because I didn't really want to embarrass my family. I didn't really want to put all their stuff out there for everybody. Years went by, and I attended writers' workshops, and I learned that when you write a book, you don't have to necessarily start at birth. I learned that you could start in the middle. And 3 years ago, the time was right, and I sat down and wrote. But I didn't write about my childhood. I wrote about my adult years and my years as a person struggling with depression, trying to make sense of what it was like to grow up with domestic violence, trying to put into place how do you find health and healing? How do you make depression and domestic violence and past trauma your elbow so it's a part of you, it shapes you, but it doesn't rule you? So I wrote this book. And it really was a calling for me. And I think that it's sort of like what Jesus says in John 15. In John 15, Jesus talks about how I want you to go and love one another. And if you love one another, I'll live in you. And when I live in you, you'll be able to love like I love. And it's this powerful, great stuff. And then Jesus says, now, you are no longer my servants. I will not treat you like a teacher treats students. I will not treat you like a commander treats his troops. I will not treat you in a way that doesn't share everything. I will share everything with you. In fact, I have shared everything God has told you. Everything God has told me, I have shared with you. Wow. Is there anybody in the world that you have shared everything you know with? Now, sometimes we think we're really close to somebody, and years go by, and then they say something and you go, oh my gosh, I never knew that about you. I have a good friend, and just this year, we've been friends for years, just this year, she mentioned in passing that she had grown up with an alcoholic mother. And I listened to her, and I asked her a few questions about what was that like and everything, and then I immediately thought, oh no, did I I do that right? Did I listen right? Because there's a way to listen that's healing, and there's a way to listen that's not very healing. And she said, you did it fine. You didn't go, and you didn't say, oh no, and you didn't make any judgments, and you didn't give me any advice. You simply listened to me. You listen carefully and respectfully, and that's the right way when somebody shares their past trauma. To listen. And there's something powerful about listening, because listening provides healing. They say if you tell the story of trauma at least 30 times, healing begins. Because you see, it's no longer knocking around inside here, a frozen secret that every time you see a movie or a TV show or somebody on the street doing or saying something, it pops back up and whacks you in the chest. It's out here now, and you're able to put it into perspective. Love each other. Well, you know, the part about love that's difficult, whether it's between parent and child, or brother and sister, or good friends, or spouses, the trouble with love is it requires you to be vulnerable. Isn't that great? I don't see any smiles. Vulnerability is tough. We are all too happy as church members to come in and pray for someone else. But when it comes to lifting our hand and saying, I have a problem and I need your prayers, we don't do that much. Because it's scary and it feels risky, and it's opening ourselves to let other people know what we're struggling with. And yet that's what Christ calls us to do. Christ says, I call you mine. And when you're mine, you share with each other so that all can help. Why do you share? You share because it brings hope and healing. Why do you share? So that people know they are not alone. John 15, I share my love with you. John 15, love each other. I call the sermon elbow grease because, well, you know what elbow grease is, right? You ever had anybody say, put a little elbow grease into that? Or try again if you didn't get it? They mean work harder, apply yourself, you can do it. Do you like doing elbow grease? That's what I'd like to know. Is elbow grease fun? No. It's just plain work. Now sometimes the results are spectacular. I think Jesus says in here in this text, put a little elbow grease